Hello and welcome back to my abridged commentary of Wargroove. Last time we did Act 1, where we saw the Queen of Cherrygrove, Mercia, flee from her kingdom due to it being taken over by the undead. We fled into a nearby forest, but unfortunately these forests, the Gloom Woods, are controlled by the Floran from Starbound, if anyone's played that. And they don't like us being here, according to this guy at least, and that's going to lead into a stage where we have to fight with their army. For this new act, we've got a new mechanic to play with, and it's a bit of a disappointing one. It's Fog of War. I remember the old Fire Emblem games used to do this, and perhaps rightfully got rid of the idea at some point along the way, because this introduces quite a strong element of RNG. Since getting the first hit is so important, and your line of sight is less than your movement range, enemies will, for all intents and purposes, appear at random and attack you, and you can't do anything about it unless you learn the stage. There is one thing we can do to counter this problem that the game does provide. If you put guys up on high ground, they can see further than they can move, and that somewhat alleviates the problem. We've got some dogs to do the looking for us in this case, so that's nice. They're making up for this annoying mechanic by letting you use dogs, I suppose. Now the enemy troops are out there, and I quickly learned that basically each faction's troops are the same. So while I was initially not sure what to make of flower people with swords, they're just the same as your guys with swords. Each faction seems to have roughly equivalent units. So let's just get this battle started. First we slam these hidden swords flowers with some arrows, and then we use Emmerich, the hero for this stage, to hit him with some lightning and blast him away. A good start, just need to do that to the other two hidden units we spotted as well. We sort all that out. Then we see an example of what I complain about with this Fog of War mechanic really. An enemy unit just appears and does some damage to our doggos, no less. And really there's nothing we could have done about that. I suppose you could advance one tile at a time, very slowly, and try to make sure you don't accidentally walk into someone else's hidden movement range. But then you are being ranked on how fast you do the stage as well, so I think learning the stage is the real solution. We take revenge for the animal abuse very quickly and move on. I capture the two neutral villages in the area, but again we've got some very angry plants coming out of the trees to ambush us with some pseudo-guaranteed damage. It's Vietnam 0.1 right here. But at least it's only sword units, they're not very strong, so once they've wasted their attack we just hit them and take revenge. Here the doggos make quick work of those swords flowers. The dogs are roughly similar to pikes I think in terms of their offensive ability, as well as being a scout unit. The dogs I sent off to the left to go and sit on a mountain are attacked by some enemies that this time we did actually see, but we only discovered them at the end of our turn, so we had to take the attack. With our +4 defense on the mountain it was okay. Some more flower people appear off to the east, attack these pikes, and don't do enough damage to warrant concern really. While we're being ambushed all the time, they're not taking our units out, and because we can quickly clear those ambushes away, we'll still get the villages, which is what we're here for, and then with the villages we can heal up the damage done to our men. That means we're going to be fine in the end, and we've soon captured everything south of the river. I sent some dogs across the river on the left, and annoyingly they discovered an enemy nearby, so then I had to send Emmerich across with them to reduce the chance of the dogs being attacked by both of the sword units in the area. We'll send some knights to support, and everyone else will set up ready to go across the nearer bridge onto the enemy's side of the map. However, then the enemy have a surprise for us. Looks like some units are going to spawn behind our lines, so if we move on towards the north we'll be attacked from the south. Plus the AI sort of wakes up and starts capturing the neutral villages on its side of the river. Our dogs unfortunately do take an attack, heartbreaking every time, but we're going to be able to sustain it. We do roughly the same damage back to the swords, and Emmerich will help them out. So now the game's giving us this tactical dilemma, I suppose. Our objective in the game is to go upwards and try to take down the enemy barracks or their commander, but we're going to lose the villages presumably in the south if we focus on doing that. I first started thinking, can we be cheeky and just ignore the south, just push everything north and end the stage, since that's all we need to do. But then I thought, well, I'm no expert, let's play things slightly less aggressively compared to how I usually like to do things in these series. We're going to move some units down south, hold on to the villages and play the long game a bit, keep our income going, while other units will try to push across the river and just see what happens, probe the enemy's strength. Our guys move across, capture the enemy village, and then can only really wait to see what the enemy do to us, so let's see. Firstly, they used their cavalry unit, or cavalry unit equivalent, to take out the village that I captured. That's good though, because we just got the village for free and then lost it in the same turn, so really nothing happened ultimately there. However, some archers appear, do big damage to our pikes, and now that they're weak, their inferior swords can finish them off. Good tactics from the enemy, we are screwed over there. At least they didn't have anything else pressing against us in that area. We hear some shuffling, indicating that the enemy to the south are advancing. We also do see a sword unit appear. That's a good sign. We want the enemies down there to be nice and weak, like swords, so that they're less of a threat. And speaking of swords, some more appear to attack Emmerich, who's out on his own, just tanking to make sure our doggos don't get attacked too much. And he easily deals with them, and we wipe out the general western area with ease. We're going to leave him in the trees to continue tanking while we focus on this situation near the village. I have the option to charge the dogs forward to attack those archers on the other side of the mountains. First though, I'm going to do a critical attack on the nearby swords. Again, this could in theory kill them, but whenever I do this, it never seems to kill them. Perhaps your damage is slightly lower than what it says it will be every time. These pikes can move up and finish off the enemy swords. However, instead we're going to use them to capture the village. While we're unlikely to hold it, this is like effectively spawning a new unit, because the enemy AI will aggro onto the village and try to decap it, wasting their turns potentially, so that's what we're hoping for. I also do this very dangerous move with the dogs. We do good damage to those archers, but now they're out at the front. The mountain gives them line of sight, and that line of sight shows us how much stuff is right there, so they're in big trouble. Also in big trouble are the archers they left behind. I gave the enemy a clear path to the archers when I moved those dogs. Didn't really think about that. Bad tactics, and we lost the archers as a result. The enemy equivalent of dogs, these lumps, come over to attack Emmerich, but they don't do all that well thanks to his tankiness. In the south, units are starting to appear and actually fight us now. On the right side, we take damage on a village, and looks like that unit will be able to finish the village off if left unattended. Another unit, outrageously, goes for the doggos. Never forgivable. And because they get the first strike, it's going to be an okay engagement, but now we can first strike them back and turn that around. The nearly dead swords go after the dogs in the mountains, not really going to do anything except get themselves killed. Then the nearly dead archers also go after the dogs, and again we're going to be able to survive that because of the enemy's low attack. Then the enemy hero, Sedge, teleports behind the doggos and takes them out anime style. True villainy at its worst, absolutely outrageous, and we lose our line of sight over the enemy base area, so we can't see what's going on back there anymore. At the start of the next turn, seeing that there is quite a lot of pressure on us right now, I thought let's try and use Emmerich's special ability. He can use the Elder Shield, which is an area of effect defense buff. So you slap it down, and then anywhere in the area your allies take reduced damage. I think what it does in practice is it gives you a high level terrain bonus no matter what terrain you're on. So it's the equivalent of standing on mountains at all times or something. But it will eventually disappear. It also is considered a unit and can be destroyed by the enemy. So with that set up, we'll just sit around. I could, in theory, attack the enemy dog unit that was attacking Emmerich, but annoyingly I've lost line of sight on where it was, so while I know where it is, my men can't, I suppose, and you give the attack order before the move is made, so even if you move into line of sight you can't do it like that. We'll just have to take the enemy attack instead. At least these pikes can attack the enemy cavalry yak things. We can't take them out since we don't have critical damage here, but we don't take much return damage since the enemy health is low. And I've just bought a new archer unit so they can sneak over and rain a few arrows onto the yak things, and that will deal with them. As for that attack coming from the south, long story short, we dealt with them. Their units weren't very good, it was just 3 units of swords, so our 2 doggo squads and the pikes clear them up, and then our guy officially decides the ambush is over so we can focus everything on the northern attack. In the north we're still contesting that village, and even with many of our units off doing other things, we're able to hold our ground by having 2 tanks really, Emmerich as one, and the village itself still acting as the other, distracting enemy attacks and wasting their time. We do keep losing the village, but we can just recapture it to restore its health bar and make some more tank. This is a pretty good strategy, I think, overall. Anyway, so once the nearby units are taken out, I did something incredibly stupid actually. I sent these knights to go around behind these enemy swords and do some decent damage to them so they won't be a worry, but by charging into the fog of war I've now got the knights standing right next to enemy pikes, among perhaps other things that we can't see. I could move Emmerich up to take out the pikes, but then he'd be in great danger as well. So now I'm sitting here considering it, saying, should I possibly throw our leader away and lose the stage? Eventually I didn't. I decided to go for the conservative option. But this does mean I've left the knights out in the middle of nowhere, so I'll now be punished for my reckless move with them. They're going to get attacked by everything. The only upside to this is that they distracted the enemy army for this turn, so the rest of my guys are fine. But yes, we are going to lose these knights, who are a nice expensive unit, with the enemy faction leader, their hero I should say, coming over to deal the final blow. Now we know in theory that leader is just there on the other side of the mountains, and we could push forwards to try and take him out. But as I manoeuvred, it turned out he wasn't there actually. He seems to have disappeared. As I move this dog up, we'll see for sure. They've just got a couple of units a little bit further back. But that's fine, we don't have to take that hero out, as long as he doesn't ambush us anytime soon. We can either kill him or decap their barracks to win the battle, and we're almost at the barracks. So whatever happens, we're finally approaching the end of the stage. I'm even going to go a little bit wild here and charge in with Emmerich, just for no reason. If the enemy are going to be conservative with their hero, I'm going to be outrageously aggressive for no reason. So he does charge in and does some okay damage to these pikes. But now, as you might have spotted, there's a whole load of enemy units around him. It's really not as bad as it looks though, because these enemy units are damaged. The swords and the archers won't be able to do any damage, the pikes are now rendered useless, and the full strength unit nearby, the dog equivalent thing, is easily almost taken out by some knights who charge in. So with that, even though it looks like we're kind of overextended, we're not. The enemy can attack Emmerich and it just won't do anything. His counterattacks will do something, and we'll soon be clearing up what's left of the enemy force. The really good news was that the enemy faction leader ran away. While that means we can't defeat him, it means he didn't do any damage to Emmerich, which could have potentially been dangerous if it was a lot, and it means the barracks is open to attack, so we slam it with some cav. Emmerich shoots some lightning, that decaps it, and wins us the stage. Didn't have to bother fighting the enemy hero in the end. That's probably the faster way of doing things. With the battle over, we don't really get much in terms of story. All that happens is that the leader of the Gloomwoods Tree faction appears, but it doesn't really do anything in this case. We're going to leave that as a cliffhanger apparently for the next stage. We somehow pulled off an A ranking and 3 stars. It felt like I was doing that quite slowly, but I guess I was as aggressive as the game intended you to be in the end, even though it felt like I could have gone a little bit faster if I just sacrificed everything for one giant push towards their stronghold right away. But anyway, doesn't matter. So there's the next stage. However, we're not going to go right into that now, because we also unlocked this side mission. I think in retrospect I probably won't bother including the side missions in this series, perhaps at the end, because they don't actually do anything. It doesn't make anything else in the game any easier or anything like that. It's just other missions you can do. But since I did do this one, we'll take a look at this first side mission. We're playing as Caesar, Mercia's dog, who has somehow managed to wrangle himself up command of the army and has gone out to take down some bandits. The goal is just to clear out a castle full of enemies, but we don't have a barrack, so we can't recruit any units for this. We just have to use our starting units and a few bonus guys you can get along the way. It's another annoying fog of war stage, leading to situations just like this where I charge in with Caesar and end up facing a bunch of enemies. I'm not going to talk much about how we dealt with this situation, because as you'll see, it doesn't really matter. Basically, we got through those enemies and there was a door nearby. Opening this up reveals that there's a way to get more troops in this stage. There are prisoners in the castle who will be turned over to you as soldiers if you rescue them, and to do that you just have to open the doors to their cells. It mentions there are more guys to get, however the next thing I did was destroy the door next to us to the south. This door actually opens up the route to the main chamber of this castle, triggering a cutscene where the enemy leader is outraged to see a dog, guess he didn't see the troops. And what this does in terms of gameplay is aggro every enemy on the map to come and attack us right now. So this is a big issue. We don't have many men, the enemy have lots, and since we're just on open ground and with the fog of war, there's very little we can do in terms of tactics to multiply our force and take on that many enemies. We're just gradually going to be ground down. You can sort of guess how many enemies there are by how many times the camera jerks during the end turn sequence for guys moving about in the fog of war. So yes, we didn't last very long, so we'll cut the misery short and resume once I started the stage again. So here we are, this time playing a bit more carefully because I realised we really have to keep everyone alive. Much easier said than done with the fog of war thing going on, because you get events like this. An enemy just appears, takes half the strength away from your archers, and it's especially damning because the archers now can't do as much damage, making all future engagements harder no matter whether you knew the enemy were there or not. Our main recourse is to have Caesar do the fighting. I say Caesar, it's actually his two mysterious guards that fight, unlike the regular dog units. Because Caesar is not only powerful but can regen health, so he's our only long-term way to get through this stage, the only way to make sure we're not getting weaker and weaker as we fight. So we clear out the enemies in this area soon enough. However, we do get hit with another cheeky archer in the corner situation before we can get to the next set of prisoners. I'm trying to use the dogs to scout out and get that line of sight going. But as I was learning in this stage, a dog's line of sight is about the same as the enemy movement range. So when you see an enemy, that means they can attack you. And in this case, this guy around the corner, who has the extra range because he's an archer, can attack us from even outside of the dog's sight range. And we take big damage, rendering that dog unit relatively useless for fighting purposes from now on. Very disappointing. Anyway, to take down this archer unit, we're going to have to charge forwards and use a pike crit to get extra damage. With both of our pike units not having full health, we can't make any serious attacks with them on their own, but together they can do some okay damage. But then again, I've charged forwards, so I've got into aggro range of more enemies by doing this, making my situation even worse. Those archers also finish off the nearby dogs, making the line of sight issue a bit worse going forwards as well. Very nasty. Annoyingly, the enemy weren't aggroing onto Caesar, they're going around here to take out these pikes, although they actually survive with a tiny bit of health, and that's going to be pretty useful later on, as we'll see. Since pikes get their crit bonus from being near each other, having a half-dead unit of pikes around can actually be used to amplify your attacking power. There, Caesar does actually get the aggro and annihilate some swords. We go on to take out the next door, securing some more units to replenish our very wounded force, but more guys are just aggroing in from outside of our range. We lose most of the unit of swords there, some dogs appear from somewhere, and again, most of the unit of swords is going to get taken down, and unlike pikes, a half-dead unit of swords has no utility whatsoever, other than being a sacrifice potentially. At this point I started playing it safe, advancing just a little bit of my movement range each turn to see if we could get one enemy to come at us at a time. Means it's going to be ruining our score, the amount of turns we'll take to go through the stage will skyrocket, but I just want to complete the stage at this point. I'm not worried about getting a good rating. So yes, we're edging up, making sure that one enemy will come over and preferably hit Caesar rather than anyone else, since that damage will be non-permanent. We take out a few enemies in this fashion, but then another hidden archer appears, and with archers you can't control so easily who they're going to attack because their attack range gives them many options. Annoyingly, we lose most of our other dog unit. Then Caesar does get attacked by some enemy dogs, dog on dog action, but these two crossbowmen deal with the worst of it by the looks of things. Now we move on to take out the final prisoner cell, so that's our last little set of guys added to our force, and they're going to have to do the fighting for the last part of the stage since everyone else is very much depleted. While it says we just need to go and attack the central part of the castle, I couldn't help but notice there was this other part of the map. There's something out there in the woods, and there's another destructible door leading to this outside section, so I thought before we go into the main chamber, let's check that out. On the way, we encountered two more units of swords, and I thought, well, that's good. Since the enemy's guarding this door, there might actually be something out there that we can use. We lost some more men taking out those swordsmen, but we did get outside. Disappointingly though, when I went over to this statue, while it was something, a little dialogue box appears, it didn't actually do anything. I was really hoping it would cause our whole army to be healed up for the final battle, that would have been great. but actually it's just meant that dock unit isn't present to fight in this final battle, which I have got started by opening up the door to the enemy chamber and letting them come out, because going in myself would be very tactically disadvantageous, I thought, even though doing this means the enemy gets the first strike. At least they used that first strike on Caesar, that's not so bad. Now their most powerful unit, the Knights, will be nice and vulnerable. We hit them with some arrows and some pikes to take them out. That was supposed to represent the Bandit leader, I think, but we do have to kill everything on the map to win the stage. Just going to shuffle up like this, not actually going for the first strike attacks, because I know the enemy have lots of archers back there, so whoever goes forwards is almost guaranteed to get taken out, and we need to keep a few units in high health, on high health, so we can attack things later on in the stage. And now those 1 health pikemen come into their own. We're just setting them up near our block, ready to provide lots of mutual crit support with the other pikemen. Hopefully this will increase our chances. My dream of not being hit by the enemy archers quickly fades away, and with full strength archers hitting us, they can do some big damage and we can't really fight back. First they take out some of my own archers, then do a lot of damage to my pikes. There's no line of sight, as you might guess. They can shoot through and over the walls, even indoors, pretty special. But I can't complain because the game that I'm developing, the turn-based tactics game, also has that simplification. Anyway, they charge forwards and actually do a critical attack with their pikes on the guy I had plugging the door, and everyone else runs away. Perhaps they're planning not to get hit by return fire from my own archers. Nice AI there. I'm going to use my archers to clear out the door so our melee units will be able to charge in and potentially attack the enemy. Annoyingly, I have to use both of my archer units to take out this 1 pike squad, but there was nothing else they could attack in this turn anyway, so it's okay, since the enemy ran away. Now, looking over our melee units, things are pretty pitiful. Everyone's really weak and half dead. We've got a couple of guys who still have full or nearly full health. But we're going to have to do something with all of the nearly dead guys in order to make use of our force in general, and one thing we can do with them is that. Just run up, don't make any attacks because they'll die to counterattack, and have them stand there as an aggro beacon and to provide line of sight. Now we can see what we're working with in the enemy's chamber. Those 2 units of archers are particularly dangerous. I'm using Caesar's special groove ability. This allows guys who are next to you who have already acted this turn to act again, so with that I can push some swords who were at the back of our formation all the way to the front and into the enemy. They go in to take out some archers, but with swordsmen being generally quite weak, it's no golden bullet and they take just as much damage in return with that counterattack. I've got another volley from my own archers I can use though, thanks to Caesar's inspirational cuteness, and that volley does remove an enemy archer unit from play. Now things are starting to even up, and we can use our many sacrifices to grind our way to victory. We aggro the enemy onto useless things like that pike unit who's already been sent out to die from earlier, and then our units that do have some attacking strength lay down with the hits. Caesar in particular can take out units very easily, and we've got a full strength unit of archers that right there proves their worth, almost taking out a unit of swords. And there's the final blow against the last unit. After a long and arduous battle, we have finally won. At least it was long and arduous for me while playing. Maybe it's not so bad when abridged. Speaking of that, these episodes are taking a little bit too long to make in my very strict video making time schedule, so they might be a bit shorter in the future. I might stick to 1 battle per episode, especially as the battles get longer and more complicated as the game goes on. Anyway, we got a nice 1-star C rating for my very slow and sloppy performance of that mission, but I expected something like that since I was deliberately playing very safely. And as I said, nothing really happens as a result of completing the side mission. You've just done it. You unlock some lore and something in arcade mode, which I haven't checked out. Not really sure what that is. Anyway, looks like we've got plenty more world to adventure across with the main missions, so we'll get back to that next time, including the whipping out of the big guns as we go up against the Florins once again.